Today, we will discuss an important topic in sport ethics: women in sports discrimination and Title IX. For many years, women faced significant barriers in sports, including fewer opportunities, unequal funding, and limited access to facilities and scholarships. These inequalities prevented many talented athletes from reaching their full potential. One of the most important changes came with Title IX, a U.S. federal law passed in 1972 that prohibits sex based discrimination in educational programs receiving federal funding. Title IX has greatly expanded opportunities for girls and women to participate in sports at all levels. In today's lecture, we'll examine the history of discrimination against women in sports, the purpose and impact of Title IX, the progress that has been made, and the challenges that still remain. We'll also discuss why gender equity is not only a legal issue, but also an ethical responsibility for athletes, coaches, administrators, and sport organizations. Let's begin by looking at the history of women's participation in sports and the barriers they have faced. Let's look at one of the most influential cases involving gender equity in sports: the U.S. women's national soccer team equal pay lawsuit. The U.S. women's national soccer team filed a lawsuit against the U.S. Soccer Federation, arguing that they received lower pay and poorer working conditions than the men's national team. This was despite the women's team winning multiple FIFA Women's World Cups and generating strong fan support and revenue. This case raises several important ethical questions. Should athletes be paid based on performance, popularity, or gender? Is it fair for a team with greater success to receive lower compensation? It also challenges the argument that differences in revenue alone justify unequal pay. Beyond legal issues, this case is about fairness, respect, and equal recognition for athletic achievement. It reminds us that ethical decision making in sport should promote equal opportunities and value athletes based on their contributions rather than their gender. The lawsuit ultimately led to a landmark agreement that established equal pay between the U.S. men's and women's national teams, making it a significant step toward gender equity in sports. This slide introduces the historical challenges and progress of women in sports. For many years, women experienced discrimination simply because of their gender. Unlike discrimination based on race or nationality, women often faced unequal treatment in opportunities, funding, leadership positions, and athletic participation. This discrimination extended beyond sports into many areas of society, including education, business, and politics. As a result, women had fewer opportunities to compete and develop their athletic potential. Fortunately, significant progress has been made over the past several decades. More girls and women are participating in sports than ever before, and schools, colleges, and universities have expanded opportunities through greater support and investment. Although important advances have been achieved, gender equality in sports remains an ongoing challenge. Throughout this lecture, we'll examine how laws such as Title IX and continued advocacy have helped create a more inclusive and equitable sport environment. This chart shows one of the greatest successes of gender equity in sports. Before Title IX, opportunities for girls to participate in high school athletics were very limited. In the early 1970s, fewer than 300,000 girls participated in high school sports. Over the next 3 decades, female participation increased dramatically by nearly 800%. By the 2000 to 2001 school year, almost 2.8 million girls were participating in high school athletics. While boys still had higher participation numbers, the gap became much smaller. This growth reflects the impact of expanded opportunities, increased school support, and greater public acceptance of women's sports. More girls gained access to athletic programs, scholarships, and the physical and personal benefits that come with sports participation. This graph demonstrates that when equal opportunities are provided, participation grows significantly, highlighting the positive impact of Title IX on women's sports. This chart highlights the dramatic growth of women's participation in college athletics following the implementation of Title IX. In the 1971 to 1972 academic year, only about 30,000 women competed in intercollegiate sports. By 2000 to 2001, that number had increased to more than 150,000, representing an increase of over 400% in just 3 decades. Although men's participation also increased, the growth in women's athletics was much more significant. This reflects expanded opportunities through new varsity teams, athletic scholarships, improved facilities, and stronger institutional support. The increase in participation has provided more women with opportunities to earn college degrees, develop leadership and teamwork skills, and compete at higher levels of sport. Overall, this graph demonstrates that Title IX transformed college athletics by opening doors for thousands of female student athletes and promoting greater gender equity in higher education. This slide summarizes how women's sports have developed over the past 2 decades. The number of women participating in sports has continued to grow at every level, from youth and high school athletics to college and professional sports. At the same time, schools and organizations have increased funding for women's programs, including scholarships, coaching, facilities, and athletic resources. Women's professional sports have also become much more popular. Leagues such as the WNBA, the National Women's Soccer League, and major international competitions are attracting larger audiences, greater media coverage, and increased sponsorship. Although challenges such as pay equity and media representation still exist, the overall trend is very positive. Women's sports are receiving more recognition, investment, and support than ever before. This growth demonstrates that expanding opportunities benefits not only female athletes but also the entire sports industry. This chart shows the most popular women's sports around the world. According to the survey, soccer ranks as the most popular women's sport, followed by badminton, basketball, and tennis. Volleyball, cricket, and table tennis also attract large numbers of fans, demonstrating that women's sports are popular across many different regions and cultures. The growing popularity of these sports reflects increased media coverage, greater investment, and the outstanding performances of female athletes. International events such as the FIFA Women's World Cup, the Olympic Games, and Grand Slam tennis tournaments have helped expand global interest in women's sports. Although some sports continue to receive less attention than men's competitions, the overall trend is encouraging. More fans are watching women's sports, sponsorships are increasing, and professional leagues continue to grow. Overall, this chart demonstrates that women's sports have become a significant part of the global sports industry and will likely continue to grow in popularity. This slide explains some of the key reasons why women's sports have grown over the past 2 decades. One major factor is the changing attitude of society toward women. Today, women are more encouraged to participate in sports, compete at high levels, and pursue athletic careers. This shift has created more opportunities and greater public support. Another important change is that women have developed greater confidence in their own athletic abilities. As more female athletes have become successful role models, young girls are inspired to participate and believe they can succeed in sports. Organizations such as the NCAA have also played a significant role by promoting equal athletic opportunities regardless of gender. Through scholarships, expanded women's programs, and support for gender equity, colleges have helped increase participation and competitive opportunities. Together, changing social attitudes, growing confidence among female athletes, and institutional support have transformed women's sports and contributed to their continued growth. Now, I'd like to hear your thoughts. We've discussed several factors that have contributed to the growth of women's sports, including Title IX, changing social attitudes, increased funding, greater media coverage, and stronger institutional support. Which factor do you think has had the greatest impact on the growth of women's sports, and why? There is no single correct answer. Some of you may believe that Title IX created the legal foundation for equal opportunities. Others may think that changing public attitudes encouraged more girls and women to participate. You might also argue that media exposure, sponsorships, and professional leagues have helped women's sports reach a much larger audience. Take a moment to think about your answer and be prepared to explain your reasoning with an example. This discussion will help us understand how multiple factors have worked together to advance gender equity in sports. This slide highlights four major factors that have contributed to the growth of women's participation in sports. First, government equal rights legislation, especially Title IX, has played a critical role by requiring schools and universities to provide equal athletic opportunities for women. This legal protection has greatly expanded access to sports programs. Second, the health and fitness movement has encouraged more women and girls to participate in physical activity. As awareness of the benefits of exercise has increased, sports participation has become an important part of a healthy lifestyle. Third, increased media coverage has made women's sports more visible. More televised events, social media exposure, and sponsorships have helped female athletes gain recognition and inspired the next generation of athletes. Finally, the global women's rights movement has promoted gender equality in many areas of society, including sports. This movement has challenged discrimination and encouraged organizations to provide equal opportunities and resources for women. Together, these four factors have helped transform women's sports by increasing participation, improving equity, and creating more opportunities for female athletes around the world. This slide explains the foundation of gender equity in education and sports in the United States. Title IX, part of the Education Amendments of 1972, is a federal law that prohibits discrimination based on sex in any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance. In simple terms, schools, colleges, and universities cannot deny opportunities or benefits because someone is male or female. This law applies not only to academics, but also to athletics, scholarships, facilities, coaching, and other educational programs. Title IX does not require schools to provide identical programs for men and women. Instead, it requires that opportunities and benefits be provided fairly and equitably. The impact of Title IX has been tremendous. Since its passage, millions of girls and women have gained access to athletic programs, college scholarships, and competitive opportunities that were previously unavailable. Overall, Title IX is considered one of the most important laws for advancing gender equity in American sports and education. Title IX applies to all educational institutions, both public and private, that receive federal financial assistance. Because most colleges and universities participate in federal student financial aid programs, they are required to comply with Title IX. This means schools must provide equal educational opportunities regardless of sex. In athletics, schools cannot discriminate in areas such as participation opportunities, scholarships, facilities, equipment, coaching, or other athletic benefits. It's also important to remember that athletic programs are considered educational programs under Title IX. As a result, colleges and universities are legally responsible for ensuring that their sports programs provide equitable opportunities for both male and female student athletes. In short, if an educational institution receives federal funding, Title IX applies, and its athletic programs must operate in a fair and non discriminatory manner. This slide introduces two of the three major areas covered by Title IX in athletics. The first area is scholarships. Title IX requires that athletic scholarship funding be distributed fairly between male and female student athletes. In general, scholarship dollars should be proportional to the number of male and female athletes participating in sports. The second area is participation opportunities. Schools must provide equitable opportunities for both women and men to compete in athletics. This does not mean that schools must offer the exact same sports for each gender. Instead, they must provide equal opportunities to participate based on student interest and ability. The goal of these requirements is to ensure that all student athletes have a fair chance to compete, earn scholarships, and benefit from athletic participation regardless of gender. On the next slide, we'll examine the third major area of Title IX, equal treatment and athletic benefits, including facilities, coaching, equipment, travel, and other resources. Let's examine one of the most important Title IX cases in college athletics, Cohen versus Brown University. In 1992, Brown University faced budget cuts and eliminated funding for four varsity teams: men's golf, men's water polo, women's gymnastics, and women's volleyball. At that time, women made up about 48% of the student body, but only 37% of varsity athletes. This meant that women did not have athletic participation opportunities proportional to their enrollment. Female student athletes challenged the university, arguing that Brown was violating Title IX by failing to provide equitable participation opportunities. The First Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of the women. The court held that schools must provide athletic participation opportunities that are substantially proportional to the gender makeup of their student population, unless they can show they are effectively meeting student interests and abilities through other means. This case became a landmark decision because it clarified how Title IX should be applied in college athletics. It reinforced that budget cuts cannot be used as a justification for reducing opportunities in a way that creates gender inequity. This slide explains the third major component of Title IX: equal treatment and equal benefits for student athletes. Title IX requires schools to provide female and male student athletes with equitable treatment in every aspect of their athletic experience. This means that equality goes beyond simply allowing students to participate. Schools must provide comparable equipment and supplies, fair practice and competition schedules, and equal support for travel and daily expenses. Student athletes should also have equal access to academic tutoring, qualified coaches, and medical and athletic training services. In addition, schools must provide equitable locker rooms, practice and competition facilities, housing, dining services, publicity and promotion support services, and recruiting resources. It's important to understand that Title IX does not require every resource to be identical. Instead, the overall quality of the opportunities and benefits provided to male and female student athletes must be equitable. In short, Title IX ensures that student athletes are treated fairly not only when they join a team, but throughout their entire athletic experience. This slide focuses on one important area of Title IX compliance: equipment and supplies. Title IX requires schools to provide male and female student athletes with equitable equipment and supplies. The goal is to ensure that both groups have the resources they need to train and compete successfully. When evaluating compliance, schools consider several factors. First is the quality of the equipment. Female athletes should receive equipment that is comparable in quality to what male athletes receive. Second is suitability. The equipment should be appropriate for the specific sport and meet the athlete's needs. Third is the amount of equipment available. Teams should have enough equipment so all athletes can participate effectively. Schools must also provide regular maintenance and replacement. Worn out or damaged equipment should be repaired or replaced in a timely manner. Finally, equipment must be readily available when athletes need it for practices and competitions. In summary, Title IX requires more than equal numbers of equipment. It requires equitable quality, access, maintenance, and support so that all student athletes have the opportunity to perform at their best. This slide focuses on another important area of Title IX compliance: the scheduling of games and practice times. Title IX requires schools to provide equitable scheduling for male and female student athletes. This means that fairness involves not only the number of opportunities to compete, but also when and how those opportunities are provided. First, schools should provide a comparable number of competitive events for men's and women's teams. Second, teams should receive equitable practice times and practice lengths. No team should consistently receive less favorable practice schedules simply because of gender. Third, schools should consider the time of day. For example, if one team regularly receives prime practice times while another is always scheduled late at night or early in the morning, that may create an inequity. Finally, schools should provide equitable opportunities for preseason and postseason competition, including access to tournaments and championship events. Overall, Title IX seeks to ensure that male and female student athletes have fair and comparable opportunities to prepare, compete, and succeed throughout their athletic seasons. This slide focuses on facilities, another important area of Title IX compliance. Title IX requires schools to provide equitable facilities for male and female student athletes. This includes locker rooms, practice facilities, and competition venues. First, locker rooms should be comparable in both availability and quality. Female and male athletes should have access to clean, safe, and well-equipped spaces. Second, practice and competition facilities should offer similar quality and availability. Teams should have fair access to fields, courts, gyms, and training areas without one group consistently receiving better facilities. Schools should also consider exclusive use of facilities. If one team has dedicated facilities, similar opportunities should be available for other teams when appropriate. Finally, facilities must be properly maintained and prepared. Playing surfaces, lighting, equipment, and other resources should be kept in good condition so that all student athletes can train and compete safely. In summary, Title IX requires schools to provide equitable athletic facilities. The goal is not identical facilities, but comparable quality, access, and support that allow every student athlete to compete under fair conditions. This slide focuses on medical and training services, another key area of Title IX compliance. Title IX requires schools to provide equitable medical care and athletic training services for both male and female student athletes. This means that athletes should receive comparable support before, during, and after practices and competitions. First, schools should ensure the availability of medical personnel, such as team physicians or sports medicine staff, during practices, games, and team travel. Second, student athletes should have equal access to health, accident, and injury insurance, as well as appropriate medical treatment when injuries occur. Third, schools must provide qualified, certified athletic trainers for both men's and women's teams. These professionals play an important role in injury prevention, treatment, rehabilitation, and athlete safety. Finally, athletes should have equitable access to weight rooms, training facilities, and conditioning equipment. These resources should be comparable in quality, availability, and scheduling. In summary, Title IX emphasizes that all student athletes deserve equal access to high quality medical care and training resources. Providing equitable health and safety support helps athletes perform at their best while reducing the risk of injury. This slide introduces one of the most important ethical questions in sport management. Is equality the same as fairness? At first, these concepts may seem similar, but they are different. Equality means giving everyone the same treatment or the same resources. For example, every team receives the same amount of funding or the same practice schedule. Fairness or equity means providing resources based on needs, opportunities, and circumstances so that everyone has a genuine chance to succeed. Sometimes achieving fairness requires different levels of support rather than identical treatment. This distinction is central to Title IX. The law does not require everything to be exactly the same for men and women. Instead, it requires equitable opportunities and benefits that allow both groups to participate and compete fairly. As future sport managers, you'll often face decisions about how to allocate limited resources. The challenge is determining what is not only equal, but also fair. Think about this question. Can treating everyone exactly the same sometimes create unfair outcomes? Why or why not? This is one of the key ethical debates in sport management. This slide highlights an important ethical challenge in college athletics: how universities allocate their resources. Many universities spend a much larger portion of their athletic budgets on football and men's basketball. These sports often generate the most revenue through ticket sales, television contracts, and sponsorships. As a result, men's teams may receive better facilities, including newer stadiums, training centers, and locker rooms. They also often receive greater media coverage and promotional support, which can increase visibility and attract additional funding. This creates an important ethical question. Should resources be distributed based on revenue generation, or should universities prioritize equitable opportunities for all student athletes? Title IX does not require schools to spend the exact same amount on every team. However, it does require that male and female student athletes receive equitable opportunities and benefits. Universities must carefully balance financial realities with their legal and ethical responsibility to provide fair treatment. As future sport managers, you'll need to make resource allocation decisions that consider both financial sustainability and gender equity. Finding that balance is one of the biggest challenges in sport management today. This slide presents one of the most debated ethical questions in college athletics. Should universities allocate resources based on revenue generation or based on equal opportunity? There are two main ethical viewpoints. The first is the revenue model. Supporters argue that sports such as football and men's basketball generate the most income through ticket sales, media rights, and sponsorships. Because these programs help fund many other athletic teams, they believe these sports should receive a larger share of the budget. The second is the equality model. This perspective emphasizes that universities are educational institutions, not businesses. Therefore, athletic funding should focus on providing equal opportunities for all student athletes, regardless of whether their sport generates significant revenue. Neither viewpoint is simple. Universities must balance financial sustainability with their legal and ethical responsibilities under Title IX. As future sport managers, you may face this type of decision. If you were an athletic director with a limited budget, which model would you support and why? There is no single correct answer, but your decision should be supported by ethical reasoning and the mission of the institution. This slide highlights another important aspect of Title IX, protecting students from gender based violence and harassment. Under Title IX, discrimination based on sex includes forms of sexual harassment and sexual violence, such as sexual assault, sexual battery, sexual coercion, and dating violence. These behaviors create an unsafe environment and can prevent students from fully participating in education and athletics. Because of this, schools have a legal and ethical responsibility to respond appropriately. Every educational institution covered by Title IX must have clear policies and procedures for reporting, investigating, and resolving complaints of sexual harassment or violence. The goal is not only to respond when incidents occur, but also to prevent misconduct, protect those affected, and maintain a safe and respectful learning environment for everyone. For coaches, athletic administrators, and sport managers, this means promoting a culture of respect, educating athletes about appropriate behavior, and taking all reports seriously. Ultimately, Title IX is about more than equal participation in sports. It is also about ensuring that every student athlete can learn, compete, and succeed in an environment that is safe, respectful, and free from discrimination and harassment. This slide explains what sexual harassment is and why it is such a serious ethical issue in sports. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other unwanted verbal, nonverbal, or physical conduct of a sexual nature. The key word is unwelcome, behavior that is unwanted and makes another person feel uncomfortable, intimidated, or unsafe. In sports, sexual harassment can occur between coaches and athletes, teammates, administrators, or other members of the athletic community. Even comments, jokes, or repeated inappropriate behavior can create a hostile environment if they interfere with a person's ability to participate in sports or education. Sexual harassment damages the trust and respect that are essential for healthy coach athlete relationships. It can also discourage girls and women from participating in sports or pursuing coaching and leadership positions. As sport managers, coaches, and administrators, it is our ethical responsibility to create an environment where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. This means preventing inappropriate behavior, responding to complaints promptly, and ensuring that all athletes can participate in a safe and supportive environment. Ultimately, preventing sexual harassment is not only a legal responsibility under Title IX, but also a fundamental ethical responsibility in sport. This slide provides examples of behaviors that may constitute sexual harassment in sports. A coach may use unnecessary physical contact while instructing an athlete, creating an intimidating or uncomfortable environment. Harassment also occurs when an athlete's team selection, playing time, or scholarship opportunities depend on accepting a sexual request or proposition. Another example is hazing or initiation activities that involve humiliating or sexually degrading acts. In addition, coaches or supervisors may not request sexual favors in exchange for benefits or favorable decisions. Similar behavior in the workplace, such as during conferences or team travel, is also considered sexual harassment. The key point is that unwelcome sexual behavior and abuse of authority are never acceptable. Sport organizations must promote a safe, respectful environment and respond appropriately to all complaints. This slide explores how traditional gender beliefs have shaped sports. Historically, sports have often celebrated masculinity, emphasizing strength, toughness, and competition. Sports media and language frequently portray male athletes as warriors or heroes. Because of these traditional views, female athletes have sometimes been seen as outsiders in sports that were historically considered men's activities. Today, these attitudes are changing. More women are competing at the highest levels, and society is increasingly recognizing that athletic ability is not determined by gender. As sport managers, it is important to challenge stereotypes and create an inclusive environment where all athletes are respected and valued based on their performance and character rather than traditional gender expectations. This slide explores how traditional gender beliefs have shaped sports. Historically, sports have often celebrated masculinity, emphasizing strength, toughness, and competition. Sports media and language frequently portray male athletes as warriors or heroes. Because of these traditional views, female athletes have sometimes been seen as outsiders in sports that were historically considered men's activities. Today, these attitudes are changing. More women are competing at the highest levels, and society is increasingly recognizing that athletic ability is not determined by gender. As sport managers, it is important to challenge stereotypes and create an inclusive environment where all athletes are respected and valued based on their performance and character rather than traditional gender expectations.